In this question we are told that set A has 5 elements and set B has 4 elements, and we are required to find out how many into functions can be defined from set A to set B. So if you have two sets, let us assume that this is set A and this is set B. Set A has 5 elements, let us assume that they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and set B has 4 elements, let us assume that they are A, B, C and D. There are multiple functions that are possible from A to B. Now, if all the elements in B have at least one element which is linked to them from A, then it is called an onto function. Over here, as you can see, A is linked to 1, 2 is linked to B, 3 is linked to C, 4 is also linked to C, and 5 is linked to D. So all the elements in B have at least one element which is linked to a respective element in A. So these kind of functions are called onto functions. And what is an into function? If this is not possible, then that is called an into function. For example, the definition of an into function is there is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. This will be an example of an into function. You have A, B, C and D. Suppose A is linked to, 1 is linked to A, 2 is also linked to A, 3 is linked to B, suppose 4 is also linked to B, and 5 is linked to C. Then there is no element which is linked to D, so this is an into function. Now what we are supposed to calculate is how many into functions can be defined from set A to set B. Let us first calculate what is the total number of functions that can be defined from set A to set B. In this case, the first element can be linked to any of the 4 elements. Similarly, the second element can be linked to any of the 4 elements, and the third element can be linked to any of the 4 elements in set B, and same is the case for the fourth and the fifth elements. So the total number of functions that can be defined from set A to set B is 4 to the power 5, which is equal to 1024. Now let us try to find out how many into functions are possible. We will subtract this number from 1024 to get the number of into functions. So let us try to figure out how many functions can be defined from set A to set B such that all the elements in set B have been connected to at least one element in set A. You have 5 elements in set A and you have 4 elements in set B, so you have one element extra. Let us assume that, so basically there will be 2 elements in set A which are linked to the same element in set B. So let us identify the number of ways in which we can select those 2 items. Amongst these 5 items, you can select 2 items which will be linked to the same element in set B in 5C 2 ways, which is equal to 10 ways. Now once you have selected those 2 numbers, let us assume that they are say 2 and 3, then you have basically 4 elements. You have 1, you have the pair 2 and 3, you have 4 and you have 5. Each of these elements have to be linked to one of the elements amongst A, B, C, D in a unique manner. This can be done in 4 factorial ways, which is 24. Because 1 can be linked to any of the 4 elements, let us assume that it is linked to C. 2 and 3 have to be linked to the same element, but they have to be chosen amongst A, B and D. Let us assume that they are selected, they are chosen to B, so the number of ways is 4 into 3. Once these 2 are selected, you have 4 and 5 which should be linked to A and D. Let us assume that 4 is selected, 4 is linked to A. This can be done in 2 ways. And finally, whatever item is remaining has to be linked to 5. So the total number of ways is 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, which is 24. So the total number of onto functions from set A to set B is 10 into 24, which is equal to 240. Therefore, the number of into functions will be 1024 minus 240, which is equal to 784. So the required answer in this case is 784.